about to watch is some old footage. We're still doing our hiatus thing, but I thought this footage is really good. I want to get it out right now because it talks about my depression and why we're not doing the channel right now. So you're going to watch it, and it's going to be good. The only problem is, it started out as a video that was not what it was supposed to be. You'll see in a minute. But anyway, like, comment, conform, and we'll see you guys next time. Alright, bye. Fuck. Still crush you, comrades. It's me, Dylan Evans.
No,
and
it isn't.
It's me, Smargle Fargle. And with me, I have...
Jew boy.
Uh-oh. And today, we're watching Hoarders. Tell them all about it, Brock.
Hoarders. Hoarders is a show that is about garbage people living garbage lives for the purpose of collecting garbage, and we're gonna find out how much garbage they collect and why. And why.
What Brock said. Are you excited? Because I'm excited.
I grow less and less excited.
Holy
by the hour.
fuck, am I excited. This video is changing. It is now an interview video.
A sudden interview video? How are you gonna pull that off?
Oh, you just wait.
I wish I didn't have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dylan Evans, and with me I have...
I'm Brock Zabel.
This is... you weren't in the mic.
I'm dead inside.
That's Brock Zabel, dead inside Evans.
Evans?
I just start throwing my name on after you guys. This is Brock Evans. I just start doing that for videos, waiting for you to notice.
I noticed instantly.
Yeah, Tayden probably would not notice.
Why?
He just doesn't pay attention to us.
No, whose fault is that?
Today we're doing... Shh, I'm talking. Today we're doing an interview video where I'm interviewing an important man of society. Brock Zabel. The one, the only.
Okay, but who are we interviewing?
Are you gaslighting me right now?
You said there was going to be an important guy here. And
Are you gaslighting me, Brock?
There isn't an important
Are you gaslighting me, though?
I feel like you're gaslighting me.
There you go again, making up fucking words.
You're crazy.
Do you know how crazy you sound? This guy makes up words. Gaslighting? What the fuck? Anyway, Brock, where were you born and raised?
I wasn't. It didn't happen. Would you like to give out my social security number as well?
You just leave my questions to me, and I'll say them when I say them.
The fact that we even use our last names in our videos puts us out in like a danger zone.
They don't know where we live, but I tagged the location of where we live in every video.
What? You really do that?
No, of course not.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
stupid.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I also pretend to sell stuff online, and I always put up my home address and my phone number. Every time. You think I'm going to put my... I don't want to put my home address because in the future, some Twitter neckbeard fucking loser is going to be like, he said a bad word, and my kid heard it, so I'm going to send a hit squad to him.
I'm gonna turn him into a sissy slave. You know, that Boogie, like what happened to Boogie?
No.
Boogie 888.
This is getting worse and worse.
Yeah, the whole video is fucking horrible.
Do you mind?
No.
Continue the story.
Okay. So there's this guy that like said that went to Boogie 888's house or whatever, and Boogie came out with a gun because the guy said he was going to come to his house and hypnotize him to make him a sissy slave. And so Boogie like fired off a round into the sky,
Jesus.
or something, as a warning shot. But then he got arrested for
Hitting a school. I remember this.
no, he didn't hit a school.
Didn't he?
There was a potential that he could have, but everyone was just like, he could have hit a school or something. That's why.
That is true, though. He could have hit a school being a retard.
Yeah. So he got arrested. I don't know if he was charged with anything. I don't really care either.
Brock, how do you feel about the regulated militias in the state of where we live?
What do you mean the regulated militias?
Like the militias, they all have some type of government regulation on them
Like
because they're not real militias.
what kind of government regulation? What do you mean?
They like I've looked up each major militia in our town,
Uh huh.
or not our town, but you know what I'm talking about, in our state, and each and every single one of them is mentions that they are regulated by something, whether it's like the local police or if it's the federal guys. They mention that they're regulated not by citizens of America, but by a government of America, which isn't a militia. It's just a retarded bunch of idiots who think they're a militia, but in all actuality, if a civil war broke out, they would hide in their homes with their rifles pointed at the windows, waiting for a noise.
And it's like another country's government saying that their military is regulated by somebody else's military. It's like having a military in Japan, really. It's pretty much the Japanese military.
What do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that, honestly.
So, the Japanese, until recently, didn't actually have their own military and relied solely on us for military aid.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was because after World War II, they were so ashamed of themselves that they disbanded their own military.
Well, I mean, get fucked.
What you gonna do?
You're gonna rely on the U.S. That's what a lot of countries do.
Yeah, that's true. I think we gotta like start taking down our military, and like the amount of money we put into the military, and just like rebrand ourselves and re-isolate like we once did. Keep all of our shit here. We really just gotta manage ourselves for a little while at least.
I have the same opinion that a shitload of other Americans have. It's that we need to restructure our education system from the ground up because our education system right now is atrocious and it only works for specific parts of the country because that's just how it works. Like if each school district ran their shit differently, like state wise, if they had a state way of running it, it would be a whole lot better because it would be based on shit in that state. And it would probably be better overall. I mean, where we live, we'd see an increase in jobs in welding. We'd see an increase in jobs in farming. We'd see an increase in jobs in probably a shitload of agricultural fields. It's just that we aren't seeing that because none of the schools are able to produce those types of workers anymore because of how the government is actually running our school districts.
Is there a question at the end of that?
I just wanted your.
Um, well, the problem with agriculture is right now there's not much of an incentive for anybody to go into agriculture because it actually doesn't make anybody any money unless there's government programs that bail them out and stuff. So we rely almost solely on agricultural projects to fund our or our country's food, but then those that do it don't actually benefit in any way. But be, because that's the kind of lifestyle they want to live and the thing that they want to invest in, they will, but it's not doing them any favors financially.
It's kind of like the farm. I heard a farm analogy in about China. It's that a bunch of farmers were making extra money by producing extra crops, but then they stopped producing that money because the people around them were getting the same amount of money for less crops. And so the incentive is no longer there because you're getting paid the same as everybody else despite the hard work you put into it.
Well, in the Soviet Union, they used to have a saying, they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work.
That's a pretty symbolic saying right there. I wish I knew what symbolic meant.
I don't even know what to say.
I like how sometimes I can really get into a topic and talk about it and like prove that I'm knowledgeable in this thing, and then You say something like some big word that I just don't understand, and I make a joke about it.
I don't think I've used any big words
You
yet.
said symbolic.
I don't think I did.
Oh, right. I said symbolic.
Um, but what were we talking about?
We were talking about China right after
we were talking about communist nations that had to conform into capitalist societies. The only way that communism can work is on a smaller scale, really. And the only way that that's going to work is if you have an anarchist system that allows for small communities like that to govern themselves. But the issue with that is you have to make the entire world the same way, because if the United States was an anarchist system, let's say, Mexico and Canada could look over at that and be like, well, what stops us from just taking over this whole territory? And there is nothing to stop them from taking over that territory. So the only way an anarchist system like that could really flourish, and it won't, is if everybody just agreed that they weren't going to be a nation anymore and they were just going to take down their social structures and make them a much smaller and less broad structure. But the reason that these things aren't going to happen is because things naturally become more and more corrupted. And from a Christian point of view, which is the only point of view I really have, um, that happens on purpose. And it's the reason that happens on purpose is because they're setting up for the end of times where everybody will be corrupted. Um, so nobody's going to really be able to make an anarchist utopia like they'd like. And even if they did, it'd be a small scale thing that wouldn't last very long because all the nations would come and take over their territories.
I had something to add, but like a gust of wind gone.
Yeah, that was kind of just a rant I did.
No, it's fine. It's perfect. That's what I expected from an interview.
Alright, this was an interview.
Yeah, you forgot. I'm getting your geopolitical ideals, but not where you were raised and born.
um, well, I was born in Idaho, and then soon after that we moved here to Montana because
God damn it. I specifically didn't mention the state because no one knows where we live in, except it's been mentioned multiple times on the channel.
Tayden also wore a shirt in several of our videos that's just a picture of Montana, so.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen those ones. It's pretty good though. Maybe he just likes Montana. Maybe he just likes Montana, Brock. Who wouldn't like Montana? We're kind of a utopia, and it's state-wise.
It's a great place to live. It's definitely not a utopia once you get into the state politics, but nobody wants to get into the state politics for obvious.
Not even the governors want to get into the state politics. I mean, like, we've had the same governor for the last, like, how many years?
Well, actually, currently we have a different governor.
Do we really?
John Tester went on to do Senate work. I can't remember any of our state politics, but we had I believe I think Steve Dames is a representative, and then Greg Gianforte is governor.
I remember he's the one who lifted the mask mandate.
Yep.
Which, good on him, because the mask mandate was useless, even if COVID is real.
I definitely think there's an argument for that.
For COVID? Or just for that the mask mandate wasn't going to work?
I think the problem with COVID was that it was sort of like having a cold, where it's worse for somebody that are like mostly the elderly and some people, but then everybody freaked out because it was new and nobody knew what to expect from it, and so next thing you know, we're not getting groceries on the store shelves and everybody's hoarding toilet paper, and those of us that actually care about something like guns, you can't find fucking ammo anywhere, and that's still to this day. Ammo prices are double what they used to be.
What's so surreal about COVID for me is I spent most of that time at MYCA. So when everyone else was freaking out and buying toilet paper in droves and shit, we just had like a restriction on like 2-ply and shit at MYCA, and that's the most that happened. We never had to wear masks until we came back the second time, when we were mandated to. So like during that first half when everyone's freaking out and shit, we're kind of just living our lives as cadets and just moving on and getting shit done. I remember though at during the cafeteria lunchtime and shit, you would see college students trickle in after we were getting ready to leave and stuff because they had to eat too. We would share the same cafeteria as college students. And as they would trickle in, a couple of them would actually be wearing masks and shit. And this was before it was mandated, you know? It was when it was like a free law and shit where people were encouraged, not forced. Which is how usually those things start is you're encouraged to give up your arms until you're forced to, you know? It
Right.
was one of those things.
Well, that's what a buyback program's all about. Um,
Do we have a buyback program for Montana?
there's actually a special law in Montana that was made recently that if there were to be any federal laws
We would just
on,
be exempt.
yeah, we would just ignore them on a state level
Awesome.
unless a federal agent came into the state and recognized that you had illegal firearms in your home. The state police would ignore the fact that they were illegal firearms or ammunition magazines.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It sucks that our state police wouldn't defend us.
What do you mean?
Like, if I called the police on the federals and they were like, pretend they're doing a raid on my house and we're here protecting our constitutional right to carry arms. If I called the police on these people, would the police actually help us or would they ignore the call?
Well, I think that they would definitely avoid. They wouldn't show up and arrest the feds. But there's an interesting story during Waco, during the Waco siege. The Waco inhabitants at Mount Carmel, they actually called the sheriff and they said, "You need to tell the federal agents outside to stop shooting because there's women and children inside this building." And the sheriff actually called the feds and was like, "You need to cease fire right now." And so that was the reason that technically those at Mount Carmel actually won the first siege.
Mm.
And I would say, in a way, they also won the second siege, even though the majority of them died. There's like three of them that survived or something. But because of how horrible the slaughter of their people was, it became a big deal in the media, and we're still talking about it to this day. Where, you know,
Yeah, it's funny how I cannot remember when that, like even the time period or the date of when Waco happened, but I know what Waco is, and I know that it was a fucking massacre, and just I know the political importance of such an event, but I don't know when the event took place. You know,
it was, I think it was 1993. It was during the Clinton administration.
but no, we wouldn't get help, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We would just be fucked. But do we have a buyback program?
No, we don't have a buyback program anywhere in the country yet, actually. But how that would work is you turn in your guns, and they give you a certain amount of money back. It'd be around. When people have seen buyback programs like that, it has been like way less than what the gun is actually valued at. So what people end up doing is they find these shitty old guns,
Mm-hmm.
turn them in, make a profit off of them even though they're not worth anything, and some people will even build guns from the ground up with like scrap metal and shit.
I've seen guns. I've seen buybacks before in the news, and if you look in the back in the fucking like pictures they have of the guns they've gotten, it's like pipes and stuff. Because with the shotgun, you can just fucking as long as you've got a nail at the bottom end of a pipe, you can slam those two pipes together and create a shot. You know, and I've seen those, and I've also seen spray painted airsoft guns. And I was thinking that if we could get away with doing that, because the buybacks are usually anonymous, right?
Yep.
We could get away with selling them airsoft guns, which would be pretty funny.
Well, you got to be under the assumption that while those you are that you're selling to aren't smart, you have to assume that they are. You can't risk the chances of getting caught doing something like that because then they'll start asking questions.
Yeah, a Montana Fed I think is different from a New York Fed.
If you think about it, in New York, you might be able to get away with that because they're a lot more liberal and just, I don't want to say stupid, but less intelligent. Maybe it's because their city is polluted to fuck. Maybe it's because they have no good breathable air, and maybe because New York is just a failure in all aspects of government and city planning. Or maybe it's just that Montana is fucking lit. But a Montana Fed is different from a New York Fed.
I think that people from New York aren't necessarily stupid or less intelligent than us. The problem comes from the fact that most people that live in New York and are normal everyday people want to mind their own business, and you know they're very business associated in their head. They don't have very much time for politics, and those who do tend to be like college students that are going there. And a college student like that isn't going to know the difference between a fucking airsoft gun and a real gun.
I actually want to retract my statement. You are right. I don't want to seem like I'm some super intelligent motherfucker who's better than any stupid city slicker. I am, but that's not what I want to seem like. I just feel like we are able to see misinformation and are able to recognize it for what it is. It's misinformation meant to drive us apart rather than bring us together so that we are misinformed and we hate each other. And while we see it as misinformation, New Yorkers and Californians, I want to rope them together even though they're completely different. They see this misinformation and they take it at face value. They don't do any research. They don't really think about it. They just see that they're supposed to hate somebody, and then they start hating that somebody.
Well, the problem with that is you got to see the big picture where there's those that are in California, New York, and liberal states where they see misinformation and they believe it.
Mhm.
But then there's also the people in these states that we're currently residing in, the states that are more right leaning. And within the bounds of both of them, the duopoly tends to be that this side believes everything that the left is saying, and this side believes everything that the right is saying. So we, as a new generation and a new era of politics, we have to figure out that while many things from both sides are true, a lot of things that both sides say is just a lie. And you have to recognize that these are really old systems that aren't working in today's world. And we have to figure out something new and different for ourselves. And that's where the conflict could lead.
So a long time ago, I saw this article where they were talking to Chinese people, the people who lived in China, and the people who lived in China just weren't watching the news, and they wanted to know why. And the people in China said that all of the news is propaganda, and they just don't watch it anymore because it doesn't actually matter if they do watch it. And that got me thinking. Our system isn't like their system in any way, shape, or form, but why wouldn't they do the same exact thing? Why wouldn't our government's news system also just produce propaganda after propaganda, making us believe fucked up things are happening in our country? Meanwhile, it's just small scale incidents that are few and far between. I mean, when was the last time you really heard about a school shooting or some major mass shooting or a major mass bombing? The last time that I can even think of a mass shooting was that Las Vegas incident, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And even then, that whole thing, that whole Las Vegas shooting doesn't make sense from a stand. I forget the word. What's from a logistical standpoint, from a realist standpoint? I don't know the word for it. If you think about it logically, they say that um, something something he used bump stocks and he used a shitload of AR-15s to do this. But eyewitness reports and videos from the actual event show that it was a constant stream of bullets. So that would require him to throw, not even reload the magazine. It would require him to throw a gun away, pick up a new gun, and shoot. He would have no time for it due to the video's actual showing that it was a constant stream of bullets for multiple minutes. It's more in line with a I forget the name. I think it's M249 saw or a type of LMG or MLG.
A lot of people think that that shooting had multiple shooters and they only found the one. But there's been a lot of shootings more recently that the only reason you and I can't really think of them is because we don't watch the news anymore. People that are our age aren't watching the news, and it's the same as with the China, with
With the
China.
China.
The people of China is because why would they bother
Watching
listening?
propaganda.
And I think our group of our country is even better at propagating than China because China doesn't give the people of China the illusion of choice. They have the one political party. But here it's like you either get to be with the right or the left, and whether or not you're with them determines which bias you're going to have. And we're always going to have biases, but the problem is that you either pick from CNN or Fox News or any other media outlet, and we haven't been fact checking our information for a while. And when we claim that we're fact checking, it's like a strange fact checker that came out of nowhere and is bought out by whoever pays top dollar for them to fact check their information.
It's the same like I remember watching this documentary about murderers, and I was watching it with my buddy, and he was telling me about this episode where he was like they showed that he admitted to some of these murders, but not all of them were him. And I was like, well, who did they ask? And they were like, well, they asked him. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fucking stupid. You ask the murderer who he murdered, he's gonna give you factual evidence, that's for sure. Like, even when murderers are caught, they're gonna go with the lesser option. They're gonna be like, no, I didn't murder that guy. That's not me. I shouldn't be paying his time, you know? They're gonna go for the yeah, I murdered him, I didn't murder him, I murdered him, I didn't murder him. They're not gonna give you the full information of what's the truth. So it's the same if you said like, hey, Facebook, why are you censoring this? And then Facebook just told you to fuck off. I didn't say that correctly, but
I get it.
you understood what I was talking about. Please explain it, because I can't.
So, Facebook has a clear left-leaning political bias, and because of that, people want to know why they're censoring specific information. And Facebook will come out and say it's conspiracy, it's not true. But then the fact checker that they use is paid off by Facebook, or it's paid off by CNN, or whoever just so happens to be left-leaning.
It's always like a Facebook approved fact checker. Not everyone becomes a fact checker, and that's because fact checker. Not everyone becomes a fact checker, and that's because you have to jump through a shitload of hoops, and you have to prove that you are actually left standing. You know what I mean?
Well, and you have the right, which doesn't have as much of a political scene of its own, or they don't have websites like Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat, and stuff. But when you get on,
Who gets their news from Snapchat? What kind of fucking retard?
I'm just saying that because they don't have their own platforms, it tends to be when you look at their news sites, they have their own fact checkers, but they're just as biased as if you went to the left to find out their information.
There used to be a middle ground. I wonder what happened to it. Like, I remember when both news channels used to report on both sides of the party. Whether it was CNN reporting on people who worked for Fox or people who worked for CNN, and Fox people who were commentating on people who had the same shit as them, you know? It's, it used to be a whole lot less biased. But then it became profitable and more like expected of you to be biased because these people were on your side, you know. You have to root with them until they're proven to be corrupted or proven to have something fucked up with them. Like Jeffrey Epstein. Did you notice that neither party claimed that they were friends of Jeffrey Epstein? They immediately dropped him, even though he was one of the most influential people of our time. And what's ridiculous is no one knows who he was. They only know that he didn't kill himself because of how big that meme got, which really sucks. If you go into detail, he was a part of the Clinton administration. Not none of this is legal. He was not legally a part. He wasn't like a vice president or anything like that. But he was behind the scenes. He was best friends with almost every single president that has been a president since he's like become influential and shit. And then after he died, obviously he stopped being a part of them. But once these things came out about him, uh, both parties dropped him. They used to be good friends, but since he was proven to be a child predator, they knew it would be traced back to them, and that's why he was killed.
Well, the problem with the Jeffrey Epstein case is because he was murdered. We don't get to find out. Well, we know, but they don't have to deal with the politicians and the people that are actually involved in what he does. And people say that not all politicians are corrupt people. But imagine there's a lot of corrupt people on the head. Why would they allow anybody that they don't trust to show up on the scenes as a political member? What they do is the right, the Republicans, and the Democrats are the two options. And you think that they hate each other. But the Democrats and the Republicans are the same people. They want what's best for their money. And they both know that pretending like you hate the other team is what's best for your money, because half of you guys get this half of the country and the other half gets this half of the country. And then between the two of you, you make up this deal where together you can run the whole country. And it looks as if it's bipartisan and that there's not just one government like in China. But they're all the same type of person. They're corrupt. They're doing what's good for their money. And when you pick a Democrat over a Republican or a Republican over a Democrat, you're not picking what's best for the country. And that's an experience where you're going to get some fight back from people in the generation before us. Because they'll be like, you'll say something about the government and they'll be like, well, you can't say anything because you didn't vote, or you didn't vote for what I wanted you to vote for, and that's why everything's gone to shit. Like my own parents, I didn't vote for Donald Trump in the last election, and they said I can't get upset about Joe Biden because I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the same person. They do what's best for their money, and they make sure that they're not doing anything way too radical that'll get the right out of line, or way too radical that the left will get out of line, because they want to get reelected and continue making money.
The problem with Joe Biden is I think he's kind of like me. We're okay. No, let's get that out of the air. I'm not like Joe Biden in any way, but think about it. Joe Biden does a whole lot of stuttering. He says words that he doesn't mean, and he gets into conversations that just don't make sense. That's a lot of what I do. I do a whole lot of that. But the problem is that's just how my brain works. It's not that I'm, having a nonsense conversation because I'm fucking crazy. I'm having a nonsense conversation because at the current moment, my brain just doesn't understand what the fuck's going on, and my mouth is barely keeping up. You know?
Yeah.
Like I say nonsense words like not zero examples. My brain, I fucking hate it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I try to bring up examples and then my brain's like, "Huh, examples of that thing we do all the time? None."
You have examples of that within this video. So
Exactly. That's my point.
well, if you ever feel like your brain or your mouth can't catch up with your brain, you should always take a second and stop talking, because it's better to practice not saying anything than to come out and seem like you're an idiot.
Are you telling me a guy who went to speech therapy how to speak?
I also went to speech therapy.
Yeah, well, I was better at it.
In fourth grade, they took me into speech therapy to see if I needed it. Like, because I had been homeschooled all my life up until fourth grade. So they wanted to see if I needed it.
Yeah, you were like good enough.
Yeah.
It was the like kind of the same thing for me. A lot of my teachers thought I was retarded. Is the thing. I had such a weird viewpoint of everything that my teachers just kind of thought I was retarded. And one of my teachers actually tried to get me on pills and then snuck pills into my lunches and shit. Yeah, it was a whole thing. But um, eventually they just stopped caring, and then I moved here. So it's pretty pog.
How many of your elementary school teachers were women?
Just the one that slipped me pills, really.
Really? How many elementary school teachers had you had before you moved here?
So, like, every half a year we would move, and I would go to a brand new school.
Right. See, the problem I feel like I have with like schools in general is that they really have no place for boys anymore. Like when I was going to school, they it always felt like I was held back from being more active. Or we have to sit there for 8 hours, and a little boy's not gonna want to do that. Girls can do that. Sometimes they have a hard time. But most girls can manage to do that for 8 hours. As for a boy, when they don't do that properly, they're just like, all right, well, we're going to have to put them on pills so they'll chill out so that they can sit here in class. And that shouldn't be the case. We should be working around the children and not forcing the children to work around the class just because their brain thinks different.
Another problem with the way that each school is run is because every school is run just like that. They have to put the kids on pills, otherwise they can't teach them.
Yeah, and then there's going to be a problem when eventually we have something like a civil war or a food shortage or something like that where people can't pay for those pills and those kids aren't going to know how to function outside of the parameters of those pills that they're taking. And then they're going to act out even more than they would.
And then there's also like the type of idea that most people nowadays have no skills, like real life skills. You may know how to computer program, that's maybe like the thing you majored in college, but if a civil war did happen and you had to get food for your family and you can't pay for it anymore because you lost your job because there was no need for a graphics design artist, then what are you going to do? Because your one good attribute, your one skill in life was something that wasn't physical.
Well, that's why you got to build up your skill set. Like with us, I've been building up my skills and buying things that I might need in the future for an emergency since I was about 17, and I'm 20 now, so it's been about 3 years for that. But there's an awful lot of things that no matter how far in your skill set you get, you feel like you're a novice in other areas. Like some people feel it's necessary to be able to lockpick. I don't know how to lockpick.
You can look up a YouTube video,
You you definitely can do that, but the problem is that people want you to have these things in your mind so you can do them on the spot. Like in the event that we aren't capable of just looking up a YouTube video.
And how useful is it to break a lock rather than pick it? I mean, we aren't, like, if you think about it statistically, me and you probably aren't strong enough to break a lock on like the first try. We could maybe pick a lock if we watched a couple YouTube videos, had time to prepare. But if you blunt force your way through it, 90% of the time you can make it work. I mean, sure, you've got those reinforced houses that have the steel bearings and shit for their locks and stuff, but really all you need is to go to a firehouse or look for a fire truck, and they have those specific like hack tools or whatever that are designed for breaking those locks open. So really all you'd need to do is go to a firehouse and just steal their supplies. But then there's the moral ethics question of, if I steal this thing, how many people are going to die in fires before they get a replacement?
Well, I think think right now the greatest way to protect your home is actually to buy a sign, and the sign just says you're on camera or something like that. That will increase the protection of your home by 150%.
Like those signs that state that you're a what you call it, like owner, like a security system owner. And I've heard people that don't actually have those security systems. They just take the sign from people who do, because the people who do can just order another sign.
Well, you can buy another sign like that, but you should never buy a sign that says you're a gun owner, because there's instances that you can look up online where somebody's had a sign that said you don't enter, I'm a gun owner or something like that, and so then they kill a guy, and then people are like, well, this was premeditated murder because he had this sign up. So you should always have a sign that says this place is protected by a security camera or something like that, but never one that says that there's a gun in the home.
How did we get on this topic? I was talking about the moral ethics of stealing from firemen.
I have no idea.
I have no idea how you turned that into a security guard thing.
I think it mostly had to do with the lockpicking thing.
Okay,
I was thinking about.
I'm just saying, it would be, rather than learning how to lockpick, it would be more profitable to just break into the house. Yeah. Especially since every single house that has been built in the last 40 years has huge windows. Every single house, regardless of where you look. Every single house has windows of some kind, whether it's on the second floor or it's on the first floor, it has windows. If you can break a window, you're good. I've, what was it I learned this from? It was Fight Club. I learned that you can throw rugs over barbed wire fences and it defeats the purpose of a barbed wire fence.
Yep.
Which is a good thing to know, but also a bad thing to know.
Well, given the political stances that we have in several cases, there's a chance in which we might have to survive under unique circumstances. And that'll definitely be something that could potentially be useful in those forms of circumstance.
The best thing about living in Montana is our easy access to mountains. And as long as some of us know these mountains, like we've gone hiking in them or something like rock climbing, if we know these mountains even a little bit, that has a huge advantage for us over these people that are coming into our state to enforce these other laws. So we can attack them and just disappear into the mountains. They'd never be able to find us because there's so many nooks and crannies and caves and valleys that are just hidden behind and in these mountains. So if we ever had to, say, escape from just all of the bullshit, the easiest way to do it is going into mountains. But then you run the risk of running into animal life that has never been seen by public people, because there are forests that are in Montana that have never been explored, caves that have never been explored. So we don't really know what's in our own land, because like we don't have the fucking time to go and explore it. And if we did, we'd probably die from what was there. You know?
Well, around this area where we are currently, there are no mountains that haven't been explored. At the very least, it was Native American land that they held dear, you know. Nearby, there are several mountain ranges in which we could go to and never really be found, so that's definitely something you'd want to look into. You'd want to know the areas of the mountains nearby.
Still crush ya, comrades. It's me, Dylan. It's the end of the video. You watched to the end. Good for you. Sorry about the mic quality. We had one mic broken. The other mic that we always use for group videos was broken, and my little brother was fixing it. You know, our old editor, Aiden. So anyway, Aiden fixed that. And what else was I going to talk about? Oh, this is part 1 of the video. This is only part 1 because the entire video was 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I cut this one down to what's it called? 40 something minutes, because the after this there's no good way of cutting things, you know.
the only good ending was right then and there. But anyway, I think that's it. So thanks for watching. Click like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. All right, bye. Bitch.